Welcome to the Grow Your Practice podcast. Hi, I'm your host, Chad Madden, owner of Madden Physical Therapy and Breakthrough. Join me each week as we dive into the best practices, systems, principles, tips, and tricks to help you grow your private practice.
Hey everybody, in this podcast episode, I'm going to be going through how can I change my payer mix. So this is a pretty common question, common problem that I hear owners talking, and it just happened. So this is fresh on my mind. Here's how I walk through helping an owner solve this problem. And in this episode, I'm going to go into the challenges that happen with trying to change your payer mix, the pitfalls that typically happen for owners, a framework that you can use to think about it, and really a simple action step that you could implement as soon as this podcast is over. So let's get right into it. What are the challenges for most owners? They're saying something along the lines of, I'm full, our schedules are full, I can't really see more patients in the time that we're open, in the space with the staff that we have right now. We have a waiting list. I'm not as profitable today as I am in the past. And I see that, window closing in terms of profitability, margin of safety. What can I possibly do? Right. And that's a fairly common issue for us to, feel that quiet moment of desperation that we're all alone. I can tell you this is a very common problem, probably the most common problem that I hear from a profitability standpoint for clinics that are busy. So what are the benefits when you solve this the right way, when you think through and you know how that you can better control your payer mix? Well, one, you get to, if you have a better margin of safety, you get to help more people, right? You can likely expand your existing footprint, or you can open more clinics, you can hire more staff, and in the end, you get to leave a bigger impact in your area. You get to have some predictable growth, right? It's nice to know that if you have an existing 3,000 square foot clinic and you're going to open a 1,200 square foot clinic, and you know that not only how you can increase your marketing reach, but also along the lines you can increase your profitability, and that both clinics are going to be more profitable as you expand, then that's going to give you, more confidence if you're getting a loan from the bank, or you have, a partner at home. Could be your spouse or could be a business partner that you're working with, that, you want to show them what you're doing. Having an increasing margin of safety or improving your payer mix is going to give you a lot of confidence, and also instill that same confidence in them so they can better support you. It's going to help you build a more valuable practice. If you're averaging $90 a visit and you've been static for 5 years and you can get it to 95, and let's say at $90 a visit, you're an average practice with a 10% margin, that's $9 a visit. Now, if you add another five, you just went from $9 a visit to $14 a visit, right? You had, off the top of my head, I'm going to guess it's a 55.5% increase, right, in your profitability. That's a really big deal. So if you were $100,000 profitable before, now you're $155,000 a year in profitability. That's can make all the difference in the world in helping you expand, helping you hire that next clinician, taking care of your existing team, maybe even paying yourself a little bit better, especially if you're severely compromised and what you're taking from the business today. It's going to help you compete. And just a quick example, I was thinking of, an average size practice. Let's say you're doing 300 visits a week, and you can add $5 per visit. Now, the easiest way to think this, so when I'm talking with owners, and I know there's been some controversy on this on a national stage, where somehow I keep running into people who believe that, that somehow costs scale, right? So if we're getting $9 a visit today and we add revenue per visit, that somehow, 87% of that $5 goes away. And that's not how it works. So here's a quick and easy example of how to think through this. Go back to last month, right? It's done. You have your income, your revenue, you have your costs and expenses. You know what that number is. Now, what if you went back to last month and added, you get a surprise from the insurance companies, and they give you an extra $5 per visit rather than clawing money back, right? Which is what we're used to. So they give you an extra $5 per visit. How much more did it cost you to service patients last month? The obvious answer is zero, right? You probably don't have to pay any more for space if you're getting an extra $5. You probably aren't changing your employment cost. You're probably not changing any other, your cost of equipment or anything else within your business. You're simply adding $5 in revenue. With 300 visits a week, that's an extra $15K per week that you would have last month. If there are 4 weeks in a month or 4.3 weeks in a month, that's an extra $60,000 plus. If it's 0.3, it's 65K, right? That you would have an extra revenue and extra profitability. What would that mean for your practice if you could add an extra $65,000 a month in margin of safety? For most of us, that is a very big deal. Over the course of a year, in that example, 65, now I have to do quick math, 130 times 6 is 780K, right? Wild. Just out of adding $5 per week, right? And again, imagine how much better you can compensate your staff, compensate yourself, buy better equipment, buy better space, expand, buy better systems for your practice across the board. So for my own private practice, we at Madden and Gilbert PT here, we've been working on this for years. We've kind of have seen this coming. We could see it in the metrics about how the physician fee schedule was changing. That I report on this every year at our association events, and here's what's happening with the physician fee schedule. There's downward pressure that is significant on reimbursements, and the thing that I always share, and I think is probably the most the biggest requested thing that I get from other speakers is, hey, can I use your graph of declining reimbursements and upward costs? And every time I say yes, and I give them all the material and how I got it and all the references. But, since from 2008 through 2025 here in 17 years, there's been a 16% in the physician fee schedule. And that's for conservative care. So PT, chiro, OT, speech, etc. The physician fee schedule is down 16% in 17 years. At the same time, if we look at inflation, our cost to provide care, that is up roughly 43.6%. I know I said roughly, but 43.6% in the same time period, or 32.5% in the last 5 years. Now, you can adjust for wherever you're at in the country or what your market is, but in general, we have significant downward pressure on income and significant upward pressure on our cost to provide care. And if you're still struggling with how that plays out, if you have any clinicians or team members that have asked you for a raise, I'm going to guess that, I've seen more requests for raises in the last 24 months than I have in the previous 20 years of private practice combined. So in the end, what does that leave us with? We feel like we're working harder, more disciplined for less money, for less of a reward. And, there's this principle, and I thought it was from Peter Drucker. I just looked this up. I can't find the exact reference, but it's called Quantity Quality Viability. And as we were struggling, in the practice to solve this, and I was working with, our clinical directors and my partners in here internally, and a lot of one-on-one conversations every single week with Mike Gilbert for the last, I'm going to guess it's 13 years. I mean, this is probably the most common thing that we've been looking at and thinking about to solve, right? So quantity quality viability is the framework that we ended up using. And the idea behind that is, first we need quantity coming in. So our schedule's full and is our space full, right? So schedule's full means that not only is my schedule full, but all of our other clinicians that are in an office, are we, creating enough demand for our services that we have a waiting list and we're seeing an adequate number of visits a week to pay our bills. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing with quantity is the space full. So if we have a 2,000 square foot clinic, to us, with our metrics and standards benchmarks that we use, that clinic should have 4 full-time clinicians seeing 200 plus visits a week, right? So that's goal number one, is fill space, fill schedules for any clinic that we have. The second thing with quality is there we start to think about our payer mix, right? So We have a bell curve of payers, same as you do. Even if you are 100% cash-based practice, this applies to you because your time might be worth more in some of the cash pay services that you're providing than it is in other areas, right? So whether you're insurance-based or cash-based or hybrid, where you're offering both, you can start thinking about this. So for us, we have a bell curve of payers, and some of our payers are, we're not even breaking even, right? It's a cap payer, and it doesn't matter what we do, and they cap us at $60 a visit or $70 a visit or whatever that is, right? On the other end, we have those that pay us better, frankly, for our time. So it might be, the Blues in your case, or it might be, and by that I mean Blue Cross Blue Shield, or it might be Medicare, or whatever it is for you. That's what it is for your practice. But you should know who your best payers are, right? Who the easiest payers to collect from are, right? Where you're not getting a lot of friction to collect a dollar. So that's the quality component. Now, when I'm talking with owners, and like the conversation I just had, what came up is the owner said, yeah, my payer mix is what it is. There's nothing I can really do to change it. And I said, how do you know that's true? And they said, well, I don't. I never really thought about it. I was like, well, let's just think about this. So who's your best payer? And let's say they said Blue Shield. And I said, okay, so what are the 5 new patient pathways? Like, how can we think about this? And, they went through and they said, well, 5 new patient pathways are, number one, reactivations. And I said, okay, so is there anything you can do with reactivations to get more of your best payer in? And they were like, well, I don't think so. Like, and I said, well, what do you do for reactivations? They said, we email a newsletter. I was like, okay, how's that working? I'm not really sure. And I said, great. So let's talk about that. Could you send an individual message or your newsletter? Let's assuming it's actually generating reactivations. And there's probably even a better way to do that. That's beyond the scope of this episode. But nonetheless, like, let's say you just sent a single question email, the most successful email or text that we've ever seen here within Breakthrough. Hundreds of practices have sent this. We've had people at an event send this email out, schedule patients same day. We know this works, right? So let's say you sent that out. Now you can send that out to your entire list, or you could only send it out to your Blue Shield patients. If you wanted to change your payer mix, which one do you think you should do? Well, I'd only send to my payer mix. I was like, yeah, that's right. And they, I saw the cognition, saw the realization. They were like, wow, that's so simple. I never really thought about that before. And I was like, yeah, you can segment your list and send to, your patients. So word of mouth referrals, friends and family, that's new patient pathway number 2. Can we do anything there? The quick and easy answer is no, right? You can't treat Mary and then ask her for, tell her about your friends and family program and ask her for a word of mouth referral, and then say, hey, by the way, your sister, who Charlotte, that you're about to talk with, if she has insurance company U or insurance company A, I don't really want to deal with them. So yeah, don't say anything to your sister. Don't say anything to Charlotte if she has one of those insurances, right? You'd never do that. Same thing with physician referrals, which is new patient pathway number 3. Number 4 is partners. How can we use partners to influence our payer mix? Well, I'll give you a quick and easy one. You can go through your patient list, your EMR, and look for your best payer. So again, let's say it's Blue Shield. So you're combing through your patient list, Blue Shield, you see somebody, what should you look for, right? If you wanted to find more people with Blue Shield, well, you could look at their employer. You're likely collecting who they work for. So if I'm going through my patient list and I see somebody is Blue Shield, I can go and say, okay, so who are they working for? Well, let's say I find out 3 Mile Island's here. So that's an easy. So 3 Mile Island and Constellation Energy, they're giving all of their employees, Blue Shield for their health benefits. Well, then what do I want to do? I want to go to Constellation Energy and 3 Mile Island and create some sort of relationship where they're promoting my services, right? And we can do this all the time. So you should have a really good idea from your patient list who your top 10 or 20 largest employers in the area that are offering your best payers are. And then you focus your outside efforts on creating relationships with those payers. So that's another way that you can improve your payer mix, influence your payer mix. And then finally, you can do cold traffic marketing. Lots of different ways that you could go here, but I'll give you a quick and easy one that happened here within the last year or two. So off and on over the last 20 plus years, we've had a pelvic floor program, and we have really good clinicians with it that are getting amazing results with our pelvic floor program. And we wanted to roll it out with cold traffic marketing. Cold traffic marketing to us is advertising on Facebook or Instagram. At times it has included direct mail, print ads, radio, TV, TikTok, YouTube, and Google. But the vast majority of what's working for us is Facebook and Instagram. So when we were looking at advertising our pelvic floor workshop, we when I worked with the copywriter in the beginning, and I had looked at the material, and I said, okay, who's our target market? And that copywriter, she had said, well, I talked with this many therapy groups around the country that are offering pelvic floor services, and there's essentially three target markets. Target market one is pre and postnatal. So expecting or new mothers. That's the first target market. Target market two is men tend to skew older that have prostate issues. Okay. And then primarily urinary incontinence. And then three is people that are undergoing gender reassignment. And I said, okay, so which one did you write these ads, indoctrination sequence, these emails, and landing page copy for? Who are you trying to talk to? And the copywriter said all three. And I said, well, you can't do that. Like, they're very different conversations. And let's just think, like, we're not going to exclude anybody, but we have to talk with one very specific person around pelvic pain. Who do you want to talk with? And as we were rolling this out for our practice, what we decided is we wanted to focus on the expecting or new mothers. Why did we do that? Well, number one, that target market has the highest relevance for us here in central Pennsylvania. So we started there, right? There's the largest number of people. Remember, it's quantity, quality, viability. So we wanted to look at quantity first. The next thing that we considered is, well, what does the payer mix look like for this group? And their payer mix is very favorable in general. So we can think about that, right? And now let's flip the script here a little bit. What if our best payer was Medicare? Then we might opt to target the men who have prostate issues, right? So we could think about that as well. But we went through our metrics, knew our data, and we decided to go directly to the market and focus on new and expecting mothers. Having said that, even with our advertising around the pelvic floor program with that target market, we still get everybody else in, right? Again, we're not excluding, but our messaging is very specific because that conversation sounds different with a 29-year-old mother expecting her third child than a 73-year-old who's just had a prostate procedure done, right? So in general, we can also use cold traffic marketing to influence our payer mix. You could also do it around diagnosis, right? So if I advertise for arthritis, that's going to tend to attract a skewed aged population versus if I was trying to, if I was targeting young throwers, right? Scholastic throwers, very different target markets, and that's going to influence my payer mix. So we went through a lot there. The other thing that I want to share is I get to cheat, right? So not only do I have a private practice, but I get to talk the privilege and opportunity to talk with hundreds of other owners every single year and I look for best practices, right? So really that's my role here at Breakthrough. Over the last 13 years or so, every owner that I'm talking with, I'm constantly combing the country for best practices. And then we implement those into our practice. We codify them, we make a process out of it, and then share it with everybody else. So we're all winning here, rising tide, right? And there are really four things that I see other owners doing And this is exactly what we taught in Profitability Under Pressure, our course. By the way, I don't teach that course anymore. And that's okay. That information still exists, but I can still share that information with you here. So number one is, what are other practices doing nationwide? Number one is going to a hybrid practice model. We were talking about this back in 2015 within our industry. However, it's never more relevant than today, right? The pressure is too high. You just have too much pressure on employment cost, if nothing else. Let's say you have really cheap space wherever you're at, but too much pressure on employment cost and downward pressure on insurance. So unless you're like one of the rare exceptions around the country, I know there's some very high affluent areas in the Pacific Northwest, but unless you have some magical secret with insurance reimbursement, if you're like most of the rest of us, you're forced to go hybrid. 10 years ago, we were talking about this is coming. There is a day where we'll all add cash-based services. It's never more relevant than right now, right? Like now, owners aren't saying, should I add a cash-based service or not? Should I be hybrid? It's, I'm going to do this, and what services should I be adding, right? So we're a little more aware within the marketplace. Number one is, adding those cash-based services. Tons of examples there. You just heard on the last episode, where I interviewed Doug Adams with Run DNA, and he talked about, the success there. We've rolled out Run DNA. We've rolled out, the Light Force lasers with Innovus. I know lots of practices are doing Shockwave. Some practices are doing supplements through services like FullScript, or, we also have hyperbaric oxygen therapy here. Lots of practices doing like golf analysis, or maybe adding massage or other sort of body work or small group fitness training. Lots of options, but we're forced to look at that and think through that. The second big thing that I see is renegotiating rates. We've shared a ton. We interviewed Tony Sear, who successfully negotiated rates, I believe, from 2020 through 2023 at his practice in Florida with Kinetics PT. And Tony and Melissa have been so generous in sharing what they've done. We've shared, booklets for free with the practice, but that's something else that you could do. Third thing you could do is drop a low payer, right? If we create enough demand for our services that we have a waiting list, we could choose to drop a low payer. And, on this podcast, I've had Sean Weatherston on highlighting that, how he did that. Other practice owners have shared the same thing about how they've gone out of network or they've dropped a low payer. And the fourth big thing that we see owners doing are attracting more of their highest payer, so influencing their payer mix that way. Again, that's the exact framework that we just went through here. So the final thing that I want to leave you with is the self-limiting belief that I hear from most owners, the pitfall that really happens for us, is there is this general sentiment that, I can't do anything. And when I hear that one-on-one with an owner, it's easy to create awareness that it's not that they can't do anything or they're powerless. It's that they don't know what to do. And it's by taking, exactly as we did here, we went through the 5 new patient pathways: reactivations, word of mouth referrals, physician referrals, partners, cold traffic marketing. And we went through like 3 simple things you can do along 3 of those pathways. Reactivations, you can segment your list to your highest payer, right? And it increase the amount of communication that you're sending to that segmented portion of your list. With partners, you can find your largest employers in the area that offer your best insurance and create relationships with them. With cold traffic marketing, you can start thinking through whatever advertising that you're doing and who you're attracting, who your target market is, and what payer mix they have, right? And you can also do that around diagnosis, for example. So definitely some things that you can do there. That idea that you can't control this, that's not true, right? That's junk talk. That's a self-limiting belief. That is you getting in your own way and self-sabotaging. But there is, in fact, a lot that you can do to move the needle in the right direction. So a lot in this episode. We talked about the challenges of, what's in it for you in changing your payer mix, how those small incremental changes make a really big deal, especially in your profit margin or margin of safety for your practice, and how that allows you to grow, expand, help more people, build a more valuable practice, both monetarily and altruistically within your community. I shared the story about how, Mike and I have wrestled with, we've been struggling with this forever, and then how we started looking at this through quantity, quality, viability, and really getting into what is working for practices nationally and how we're sharing that with other owners. And then we also talked about that the biggest thing that happens for owners that really gets in the way around they feel powerless, or another symptom of that could be they won't say I feel powerless, but they'll put all of their eggs into um, into some external force, whether it be government, some form of bureaucracy, um, legislative action, that they're waiting for an external change, or they're waiting for the insurance company to come and say, hey, we'll give you $2 more a visit. And that's just, I just don't see that working nationwide. So a lot that we did in here. I don't really have a good next step for you, other than if you're looking for tools to change your payer mix, that's exactly what we do here at Breakthrough. And I can share exactly how we, do this with reactivations, with our marketing system, marketing tool that I use in my practice. Same thing with partners, what we're doing there that's working really well right now. And also cold traffic marketing. To learn more about that, just go to getbreakthrough.com. Lots of resources there. And in order for you to learn more, you're gonna have to go there, root around a little bit, but lots of goodies in there for every practice that is looking to change their payer mix and move in the right direction. Otherwise, see you in the next episode. Thanks, everybody. Take care.